Hi, this is Chris, the chap in the cap from Motolegends. Very exciting day for us. This is the day of the launch of the new Arai Rapide Neo. We've been waiting for this helmet for months. Now, if we'd been in Las Vegas, there'd be a whole display of fireworks and pyrotechnics and that kind of stuff, but we're not, we're here in Guildford, so this is the best that we can do. That was rubbish. Get out of here. So here at Motolegends, we've been petitioning the major helmet manufacturers for more than 5 years to produce what we would call a modern, high-quality retro helmet. And the problem is there are lots of retro helmets out there, but most of them, if I was being cruel, or maybe just honest, are little more than overpriced novelties. Some of them look absolutely fantastic, have lovely leather interiors, great graphics, but the problem is that most of them don't actually work on the bike. Very few of them fit very well. Some of them have a chin bar that's so close that we reckon they're actually dangerous to ride in. Some are so wide that it's impossible to get a nice fitting on the cheeks, a fitting that we would consider to be safe, a fitting that is going to stop the noise coming in. Some of them are just horribly uncomfortable. Most of them are noisy. Most of them don't have what we would call adjustable venting. Some have no venting at all. Others have plenty of venting because air just comes in the gap between the visor and the shell. So not a problem on those helmets, but venting is not really a considered part of most of those retro helmets. Nearly all of them leak because niceties such as the rubber seal that seals the visor to the helmet are an afterthought on those kind of helmets, and none of them, not a single one as far as I know, comes with a pinlock visor. So if you wanted to ride in inclement weather when it's really cold, when it's raining, you cannot use any of those existing retro helmets. What we really wanted was for an Arai or a Shoei to pick up the mantle. Because let's face it, when most of us think about what what a retro helmet is, we are thinking about an old Arai or a Shoei. So it would have made a lot of sense for one of those guys to pick up that mantle and make a modern retro helmet. And of course, that's exactly what has happened. So for 2020, we have both Arai and Shoei making retro helmets. Clearly, we've got the Arai here, the Rapide Neo. The Shoei Glampster, we reckon, will be with us in about April. So this is going to be a big year. This is the year that the retro helmet came of age and became a proper helmet that you could wear in all conditions, on all bikes, and so on. In terms of the Arai Rapide Neo, it comes in a number of solid colours. Red, a grey, a lovely grey, 2 blacks, a matte and a shiny, and a white. We've also had through a very tiny quantity of a design here called the Ha. Now, we weren't expecting that. We were told that that was going to arrive later, but a very small number have come through. I think more will come through, obviously, in a few months' time. There is yet another graphic that has not been released yet, and again, we're expecting that in about 3 months. In terms of availability, the grey is virtually sold out. Grey is very much a fashionable colour in helmets at present. All the manufacturers are doing their own version of a grey, but this grey, the grey that this comes in, was sold out pretty much on release. We've got a few left of all of the blacks, both the matte and the shiny black. The white and red are in more plentiful supply. White has been the least popular colour, I've got to say. We've got a number of red. The reason we've got a number of red is because we have taken an exclusive on the red, and in order to secure that exclusive, we had to take a large quantity. So red, I think it's a fantastic red. It's a really in-your-face red that's going to work well on a Ducati, an MV Agusta, a bike like that. But there's no shortage of supply in the short term. But as we anticipated, the importer has underestimated demand for this helmet. So we have been under-delivered. We had back orders for this helmet. We have not had all of those back orders fulfilled. So this helmet is going to be in short supply in many colours from us, and I think from everyone else too. It will be a game of catch-up. So by the middle of the year, I think retailers will have this helmet on their shelves and in stock. But for now, it's a matter of, if you can find one, buy it. Anyway, let's now take a look at the helmet in a little bit more detail. We'll look at some of the features that exist on the Arai Rapide Neo. So as with all Arais, the Rapide Neo has a super strong shell. Now, that's a feature of Arai helmets. It goes back to the Snell standard. Originally, when there were no European standards, Arai tested in America to the Snell standard. Now, the Snell standard was originally designed for cars, and when you have a helmet in an automotive scenario, you need a very strong shell, because if you have an accident, you can have repeated impacts against, for example, the roll bar. So Arai developed a super strong shell for car racing, and it's continued to be a feature of their helmets. Now, that's great, because if you have an impact, then this helmet is not going to crack. But a tough shell is not necessarily very absorbent of energy. So what happens with Arai's, they tend to have a thicker compensating EPS. So you've got a very strong shell, but to make sure that it absorbs energy in an impact, you have a thicker EPS than you get on many helmets. Now, what that means, and it's just a feature of Arai, is that Arai's tend to be a little bit larger than some helmets and a little bit heavier. And certainly, if we were to compare this with the Shoei Glamster, which we have done, the Shoei is much smaller and it's a much lighter helmet. Make no mistake, of course, this is a very safe helmet. It's in a different league to any of the retro helmets out there on the market. But all I'm saying is that if you value a light helmet and a small helmet, there are other choices out there. In terms of the helmet, it also has, again, a classic Arai feature, a round shell. And that's part of Arai's racing philosophy. They believe that if you come off on the track, the last thing you want is protuberances and different shapes that can catch and twist the neck. They believe in the benefits of a round shell, so that if you hit something, you make a glancing blow and it doesn't cause rotation in the neck. Of course, that's very much what we wanted to see in a retro helmet. As I've said, most people's perceptions of what a retro helmet is an old Arai. So what we have always wanted, anybody that we've spoken to about doing an Arai helmet, about doing a retro helmet, I'm sorry, is give us a totally round shell. And of course, that's what we've got here. Now, what Arai have done, not sure this is the way we would necessarily have done it, but they've given this helmet a slightly Simpson Bandit-esque nose. And Arai have done this for a particular reason. They didn't want this helmet only to appeal to retro and classic guys. They wanted it to also work on people who have custom bikes and cruiser bikes. And I think it does that. So you're going to be able to ride with this helmet on any kind of retro bike, but it is not what we'd call a pure classic shape. And I think one's got to say it's more 1980s and 90s than it is 1970s. In terms of the detail, we have venting, 6 vents on the front here. It's got a open and close switch behind, so we can turn that venting off. What Arai didn't want, and what we wouldn't have wanted, is lots of modern opening bits that allowed air to come in, but which didn't look appropriate on a custom bike, on a retro bike. You also get here eyebrow vents. For this helmet, Arai have gone back to opening eyebrow vents. Now, we have had an Arai Rapide Neo, a Japanese version, here in the shop for 6 months. We've ridden it quite extensively. These vents really work. They help clear the visor, they flow cool air into the helmet. It's got to be said that it increases the noise a little bit. This is a very quiet helmet. Compared with any retro helmet currently on the market, this is a godsend. But it is true that when you open these a little bit, you are going to increase the noise. Now, in the EPS, you don't get the channels that you sometimes see in some helmets, but it does run, the air does run into the EPS, and it exhausts through a number of vents. You've got vents here on the side. You've also got vents at the back of the helmet. And overall, I don't think venting is going to be a problem with this helmet. In terms of the visor, it's a grade 1 optical quality. You're not going to get a drop-down sun visor, because you never do with Arai. Again, that's part of Mr. Arai's philosophy. He believes it weakens the shell. Whether that's actually the case or whether he's just missed the boat and now doesn't want to admit it and put a drop-down visor in, no one will ever know. But you will never get a drop-down sun visor in an Arai helmet. What we think we're going to see fairly soon are a number of retro tints that you can put on the helmet. So if you want to be protected from the sunlight, there will be a way of doing that. The way the visor attaches, they have come up with a new system called the VAS system, VAS, and it cantilevers the helmet. So as you push it down, it then comes into the helmet to create a really nice seal. It means that you've got a nicer, rounder shape, which again is what we wanted, but it also means that you've got a very good seal against the rubber here to prevent incoming air and to prevent rain. You've got these retro-looking side panels, obviously done to make the helmet look more appropriate. We actually think that they're going to be better than the traditional side pods on an Arai helmet, because those side pods allow air to come in, and I think that's a contributory factor to why Arai helmets have tended to be quite noisy. We've ridden in this and we think it is pretty quiet, but we just like that as a feature. We also have a nice locking mechanism here, so when you pull the helmet down, it physically locks into place on a little knob here. To open that, you just lift it and then you can raise the helmet. That also sits as quite a nice crack position, so if you're riding in the rain, riding when it's really cold and you just want a bit more air in, then obviously you can ride it in that position. The helmet also comes, and we made a big point to Arai when they announced this helmet, is we asked, could it please come with a Pinlock 120? They don't need it in every market, but if you're going to ride in this helmet seriously in all weathers in the UK, you have to have a Pinlock, and this helmet comes with a Pinlock 120. By the way, if you see this helmet in other markets and attempted, it does not have a Pinlock in other markets. It's a UK special. In terms of the interior, it's pretty much what you would expect. The same high quality you'd find on most Arai helmets, lovely soft finishing where it's against the face. You've got aerated material that is going to allow sweat to wick and move out of the helmet. All the linings, both the headliners and the cheek pads, are removable so that they can be cleaned. But more importantly, Arai offer different size cheek pads and different size headliners, so we can customize this helmet. We can custom fit the helmet, and to an extent, even though we're not as skilled at this as we are with shoeies, we can actually customize this to an even greater degree than we can to a shoei, because on the headliner, for example, there are all kinds of tear-offs that allow us to raise the helmet if it's sat too high. So we can do more things with this in theory than we can with a shoei. Now, the fit on this helmet is different to the Japanese model. We've had the Japanese model here, as I've mentioned. This is definitely a different fit. It's more a classic European intermediate oval fit. What we have always said to people is there is no such thing as an Arai head fit, because over the years people have convinced themselves, because they once owned an Arai and it fitted well, they've convinced themselves that they just have an Arai head, every Arai fits. It's not true, because every single Arai helmet has a slightly different fit. But what I think I can say with this helmet is that if you have fitted an Arai in the past, or if you fit a shoei, we will be able to make this helmet fit. It is the same general shape as Arai's and as shoei's. By putting thicker or thinner cheek pads in, by messing about with a headliner, we are going to make this a helmet that will fit you very nicely. So what we like about the Arai Rapide Neo is that eventually we have a retro helmet that, as I've suggested, we do not need to make excuses for. We've spent years here in the shop at Motolegends showing people the current bunch of retro helmets and saying, yes, the graphics are lovely, but it's not going to be very comfortable on a long journey. It's going to be very noisy. If it rains, it might let rain in and so on. So those days are gone as far as we're concerned. This is a retro helmet done to a completely modern standard. It's a safer helmet than any of those traditional retro helmets that are currently on the market. It's well vented. It's quiet to ride in. You could ride in this all day long. You could ride in it all year round. Now, inevitably, some people are going to compare this with the shoei, and we have ridden in both helmets, and they are, in some ways, quite different helmets. The shoei, again, as I've intimated, is a lighter, smaller, easier to wear helmet, and it has a more traditional classic shape because it has a rounder nose. The Arai feels like a classic Arai, and that's because in some ways that's all it is. Arai have not done lots of design work on this helmet. They've just gone back to their archives and they've bought out a historic design. They've updated it to modern standards, obviously, but this is very much a helmet that's going to feel familiar to an Arai rider. It's solidly built. It's like a brick doodah. It's robust and it's beautifully constructed. It doesn't pander to the hipster brigade. This isn't designed necessarily for the cafe latte crowd. It's not a pastiche of a retro helmet like many of them are. This is the real deal. It's just a modern updating of a classic Arai, which is very much what we wanted. Now, the shoei will be a great helmet. It's going to give the Arai very much a run for its money. But I think my view is that if you wanted one helmet to do everything, if you wanted a helmet that you could commute in, if you wanted a helmet that you could go touring in, but still go out at the weekend to pick up the papers, then I could make a strong case for the Arai. If, however, you do most of your riding at the weekend, if you want something that's really light, easy and cool to wear, then maybe the Glampster might come out on top. lastly, I suppose beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but for some people, I think the Glampster is going to have more of the classic look that they're looking for because of that rounder front, but really that's something I can't decide on. I like this helmet, but I like the Glampster as well. You're going to have to look at them, probably try them on and come to your own view. So this is the Arai Rapide Neo in all of its current colorways. 5 plain colors and 3 of a design called the Ha. Now, if you would like to look at other retro helmets, visit the website motolegends.com. Of course, we've got the Shoei Glampster on there and some of the other retro helmets that we still carry in stock. If you'd like to learn more about the Arai Rapide Neo in more detail, so look at the spec, check availability, and who knows, if you really want one, you can buy one there and then click on one of the links on the website. Sometimes they're up top, sometimes they're down below. Now, when you buy from us, we try to make the process as simple, straightforward and risk-free as we possibly can. There's no delivery charge on anything we sell, and if once having received something you decide you don't want it for whatever reason, you can return that to us, again at our cost, and we give you a full 12 months in which to make that decision. We also have a price promise that we think is the best price guarantee in the industry. You will know that John Lewis is very famed for its never knowingly undersold price promise. We go one better. John Lewis will match a competitor's price, but we will beat any competitor's price that is cheaper than ours by a full 10%. Now, if the competitor is in the EU and not in the UK, we will match their price, their landed price. We won't beat it. There are a few terms and conditions on the website, nothing onerous, but if you wanted to check it out, then that's easily done. Now, in future, if you want to receive bulletins from us about new products like this, then you can subscribe to our email bulletins by going to the website. At the top of every page, there's a piece of script that says newsletter sign up. Click on there. Within seconds, you'll be signed up. You'll receive bulletins from us in future. If, however, you would prefer to get your information in this form, that is to say videographically, we would be delighted if you want to become a subscriber to our YouTube channel, and you can do that by clicking on the button below. Now, there's a little added thing going on right now during 2020. If you become a subscriber, or if you are a subscriber to our YouTube channel, there's a chance that you can win later in the year a Steve McQueen tribute bike based on a Mutt 125. Anyone who's a subscriber, when we pull the draw at the end of the year, stands a chance of winning that bike. Finally, I'd like to make a little play for our fabulous shop here in Guildford. We're sited on the edge of Guildford, about a mile from the town centre, a mile from the railway station. The shop itself is quite small. It's got a small footprint, but actually it's attached to our warehouse where we have more than £2 million worth of merchandise set on 3 floors. So technically that makes us the second largest shop in the country. But we think that we are far more than just the amount of merchandise we have in the building. We are about our service and our personal fitting. If you want to check us out, our service is better than anyone's, we believe, but on Trustpilot you'll see that we have the finest or highest 5-star rating in the business. When you come and see us, we'll sit you down, we'll have a chat, we'll serve you the finest Italian coffee, we'll serve you Yorkshire tea in a proper pot, and if you're very lucky, you may get one of Sean's mum's famous motorcycle-shaped biscuits. Anyway, this has been Chris. We hope to talk to you again soon.